Hello everyone, and welcome back to another short story from the series of short stories called On Broadway by Damon Runyon. This one involves a character that is actually in Guys and Dolls called Nicely Nicely. Well, in Guys and Dolls it's called Nicely Nicely Johnson, but in the book here it's called Nicely Nicely Jones. But it's the same person. Anyway, this one's called Lonely Heart. It seems that one spring day, a character by the name of Nicely Nicely Jones arrives in the ward in a hospital in the city of Newark, New Jersey, with such a severe case of pneumonia that the attendant physician, who is a horse player at heart and very absent-minded, writes 100, 40, and 10 on the chart over Nicely Nicely's bed. It comes out afterward that what the physician means is that it is 100 to 1 in his line that Nicely Nicely does not recover at all, 40 to 1 that he will not last a week, and 10 to 1 that if he does get well, he will never be the same again. Well, Nicely Nicely is greatly discouraged when he sees this price against him, because he is personally a chalk eater when it comes to a price, a chalk eater being a character who always plays the short price favorites. And he can see that such a long shot as he has very little chance to win. In fact, he is so discouraged that he does not show his feeling like taking a little of the price against him to show. Afterwards, there is some criticism of Nicely Nicely among the citizens around Mindy's restaurant on Broadway, because he does not advise them of this marker, as these citizens are always willing to bet that what Nicely Nicely dies of will be overfeeding and never anything small like pneumonia. For Nicely Nicely is known far and wide as a character who dearly loves to commit to eating. Now, Nicely Nicely is so discouraged that he does not as much as send them word that he's sick, let alone anything about the price. He just pulls the covers up over his head and lies there waiting for the finish, and thinking to himself what a tough thing it is to pass away of pneumonia, especially in Newark, New Jersey. And nobody along Broadway knows of his predicament until Nicely Nicely appears in person some months later and relates the story to them. So now I will tell you about Nicely Nicely Jones, who is called Nicely Nicely because anytime anybody asks him how he's feeling or how things are going with him, he always says, Nicely Nicely, in a very pleasant tone, of course, although generally this is by no means the gospel truth, especially about how he is doing. He is a character of maybe 40-odd, and he is short and fat and very good-natured, and what does for a livelihood is the best he can, which is an occupation that is greatly overcrowded at all times along Broadway. Now, mostly Nicely Nicely follows the races, playing them whenever he has anything to play them with. But anyway, following them. And the reason he finds himself in Newark, New Jersey in the first place is because of a business proposition in connection with the races. He hears of a barber at New York, New Jersey, who likes to make a wager on a sure thing now and then. And Nicely Nicely goes over there to tell him about a sure thing that is coming up at Pimlico the very next Tuesday. Nicely Nicely figures that the barber will make a wager on this sure thing and cut him in on the profits. But it seems that somebody else gets to the barber the week before with a sure thing that is coming up on a Monday. And the barber bets on this sure thing, and the sure thing blows. And now the barber will have to shave half of Newark, New Jersey to catch even. Nicely Nicely always claims that the frost he meets when he approaches the barber with his sure thing gives him a cold that results in the pneumonia. I'm speaking of, and furthermore, that his nervous system is so disorganized by the barber chasing him 9 blocks with a razor in his hand that he has no vitality left to resist the germs. But at that it seems that he has enough vitality left to beat the pneumonia by so far the attendant physician is somewhat embarrassed. Now, although afterwards he claims that he makes a mistake in chalking up the 100, 40, and 10 on Nicely Nicely's chart, the attendant physician claims he really meant the character in the bed next to Nicely Nicely, who passes away of lockjaw and second day after Nicely Nicely arrives. Well, while he is convalescing in the hospital of this pneumonia, Nicely Nicely has a chance to do plenty of thinking. And what he thinks about most is the uselessness of his life. And all for all these years. And now he has nothing to show for the same except some high-class knowledge of racehorses, which at this time is practically a drug on the market. There are many other patients in the same ward with Nicely, and he sees their ever-loving wives and daughters, and maybe their sweet peas visiting them, and hears their cheerful chatter, and he gets to thinking that here he is, without a chick or child, and no home to go to, and it just about breaks his heart. He gets to thinking of how he will relish a soft, gentle, loving hand on his brow at this time, and he finally makes a pass at one of the nurses, figuring she may comfort his lonely hours. But when she lays on his brow is a beautiful straight right across, and furthermore, the Hollison watches murder, police, and Nicely has to pretend he has had a relapse and is in delirium to avoid being mistreated by this interns. Now, as Nicely begins getting some of the strength back, he takes to looking and thinking, too, of such matters as food. And when Nicely thinks of food, it is generally a very nourishing food at that, such as a nice double sirloin, smothered with chops. And then thinking of these matters, and of hamburgers, and a Wiener Schnitzel, and goulash with noodles, and lamb stew, adds to his depression, especially when they bring him the light diet provided for invalids in the hospital. He takes to reading to keep himself from thinking of his favorite dishes and of his solitary life. And one day, in a bundle of old magazines and newspapers that they give him to read, he comes upon a bladder that is called the Matrimonial Tribune, which seems to be all about marriage. And in this Matrimonial Tribune, Nicely observes an advertisement that reads as follows: Lonely heart, widow of middle age, no children, cheerful companion, neat, excellent cook, owner of nice farm in central New Jersey, wishes to meet home-loving gentleman of more than 50 who needs not necessarily be possessed of means, but who will appreciate warm, tender companionship and a pleasant home. Object, matrimony. Address, Lonely Heart, this paper. Wow, Nicely feels romance stirring in his bosom as he reads these lines, because he's never married and has no idea that marriage is as described in this advertisement. So, what does he do? But write a letter to Lonely Heart, in care of the Matrimonial Tribune, stating that he is looking for a warm, tender companionship and a pleasant home, and an excellent cook, especially an excellent cook, all his life. And the next thing he knows, he's gazing into what at first seems to be an old-fashioned round cheese. But when he finally makes out the face, it's of a large Judy, seated at his bedside. We'll find out if this lady and him get on, and if they get married, and what happens if they do. Anyway, till next time, see you soon. Stay safe. God bless.